Are you good to go? I think we are. Welcome to this week's episode, if you want to call it an episodic series. Welcome to Tuesday Night Edits. I'm Andy Gray, a landscape photographer. I work predominantly with intentional camera movement and a lot of post-processing, and this is my weekly live stream, which this is now episode 5. Still can't believe there's a few people actually wanting to watch this stuff, but we're here. We're doing what the gamers do. They invite YouTube viewers in to watch them play games. So I'm here inviting you in to watch me edit photographs. Obviously, it's usually not your average type of photography that I'm editing. It's fairly impressionist and abstract kind of stuff, but still very much based in landscape. So plans for tonight is hopefully to bang out a couple of images. I think it was a couple of weekends ago I shot a few vlogs, which I still haven't edited yet, so apologies for that. But they are coming soon. And one of the vlogs I shot was from Duddo Stone Circle, and so this past weekend I've been playing with a few images to create to knock out the images for that vlog, the end results. So I've got a little bit of data left to play with. So tonight, hopefully going to get at least one shot done. I'll also give you a preview of some of the images I've made from Duddo. So give you a sneaky peek of what's coming on the vlog. That one will probably be in a couple of weeks' time. So hopefully tonight's episode will only be around about an hour. I know last week did drag on a little bit. We ended up almost an hour and a half. So I certainly don't want to be doing that again. But one thing is, one of the images I worked on Sunday from Duddo, it took about 4 hours, and I did end up with about 7 versions of it. So I'm by no means wanting to go anywhere near that kind of editing. So we're going to keep it fairly succinct tonight, hopefully. But of course, we'll be battling with the speed of the computer, which is always a problem, because it is quite intense. Processor and memory hungry, the process that I use. So there we go. Stuff going on this week. Obviously, I haven't really got a shout out to anybody. But obviously, one of the big things this week is GDPR is kicking in on Friday. So just wondering if everybody out there's got their privacy policies all updated and your newsletter subscription models all adjusted. New sign up forms in place, ready. I know I did spend pretty much all day yesterday cutting and pasting bits of privacy policy from all over the place to cobble something together for myself, and updated my newsletter subscription process. So if you're not on my newsletter list already, do visit my website and get on. Hi Stu. The chat is open, by the way, whilst I'm looking, and before I get too distracted, my newsletter processes have been updated, and you can find that on my website. I've got rid of the pop-up that would always nag you to subscribe whenever you went to my website. You can see my website in the description below. So do subscribe to that. I won't hammer your inbox heavily at all. I think the only newsletter I've sent out, I think I've sent one out in 18 months. So I wouldn't be filling your inbox in by any means, but I have got a few things in the off in which I will be notifying my newsletter subscribers to first or initially. So just make sure you're signed up if you want to be kept informed on what's going on. So that'll be lovely to have more names on there. I'm not sure if I'm doing it right, but I'm not. This whole deleting your list unless you update your details. I've seen differing views on whether that's right or wrong. So at the moment, I'm just going to leave as is. So there we go. One of the things from last week's episode that generally last week was all ordinary photography editing from a Bluebell wood, so lots of you. And then at the end, I made an image which I absolutely, at the time, I hated it, probably because I was stressed because I was half an hour over the time I was expecting to be on here. The image I felt wasn't working at all. I'll just bring this up. Yeah, I felt the image didn't work at all at the time, but it's amazing what 24 hours of just leaving it be will do for the mind. Once I chilled out, had a cup of tea, relaxed a bit, had some sleep, open Lightroom up the next day to see what I actually had made, and I did actually end up quite liking it. So if I can bring this up so you know what I'm roughly talking about. This image from which I made at the end of the stream last week. Anybody that was on will know that I did hate it, didn't like it at all. But here we are. I think it's definitely my most popular image on Instagram this year, for certain. Probably last year as well. So if we all run our lives on the number of likes and all that kind of stuff, then it was a winner. But you know, that doesn't mean anything at all. But yeah, I certainly, 24 hours, and I did actually. It did change my mind about it. I did quite like it by the next day. Still, there was a few things I would maybe have done differently with it initially, but hey ho. So I just thought I'd give you an update on that. If you hadn't seen us post it on my social media after from Wednesday onwards last week, you wouldn't know that I actually did end up quite liking it quite a bit. So there we go. There's that update. So just again, chat is open if you want to ask any questions or chat with us or distract me. More than happy to be distracted. So anyways, I'm not sure if you know much about Duddo Stone Circle, but it is. I shall pop up a proper picture of it so you know roughly what it is once I find my screens. So it is an old stone circle up in close to the border of Scotland, in Northumberland, obviously. It is now a 5-stone circle, a unit. Supposedly up until a certain point in the 1800s it was a 4-stone circle because one was flat on its back, but before that it was a 7-stone circle, and now is obviously 5 standing stones. As you can see, lies north of the Cheviots. Beautiful spot. There's about a 30-minute walk from the road to get to it. It's over private land, so we're only there by permission. So if you are looking for it, there isn't an official right of way to it. It's only permissive access. So do behave yourself if you go looking for it. Lovely spot, nothing around for miles, but I will do more of a vlog on that coming up in a couple of weeks' time, I think it is. Just a few shots that I did make of this over the weekend. I did a little bit of editing. So these are just little previews of what's to come in a future vlog and what's likely to be on my social media in over the next week or so, or longer, depending on how long I keep ahead of them. So obviously all quite painterly and abstract and impressionist, whatever you want to call it. So there's a little preview of those, and this is the actual image that I took about 4 hours to create. And there were 7 versions of it before it got to this state. That was the first version, this one here, very nondescript, and after all the work I ended up with this, which is, to me, is much more dramatic, much more pleasing, and feel much more accomplished. So what we're going to do is, I've got a few distant views of the so a few ICM captures here, and what we're going to do is we're going to, as usual, blend these together to make something hopefully unique. What I have actually done is I have seen an image from not the usual William Turner, painter extraordinaire from the 1800s, but there was actually 2 William Turners. This one is William Turner of Oxford, and he made he did an image of Stonehenge, which is a bit more simplistic than the other Turner, but it was still very much a distant view of it on the horizon. So this one I am hoping to do something around his version of it. I haven't actually got an image of it to put up here, but if you Google William Turner of Oxford Stonehenge, I'm sure you'll find that image. And for the recording afterwards, I'll stick a link in the description, so you know roughly what I'm on about. So I've marked a couple of captures here. I'm saying 5 captures here to blend together to do my usual tricks of the trade with. So what I'm going to first do is just clean these up there, because they are still got the usual dust spots on. Just do this in Lightroom. Do say hello in chat if anybody's out there. I know Stu's there, or was at least, unless he's left. Do say hello. Let's have a bit of chat going. I also gonna sort out the lens corrections on here. I'm gonna sharpen it up a touch, just slightly, and I'm also gonna add some noise reduction just to keep the images clean as possible, because we will be magnifying and duplicating layers, and any noise will end up being exaggerated over the more we process it. So what I'm going to do is just going to have a look at a couple of one capture through a few Lightroom presets that I've got that I usually work with, just to see what we have to play with. I think I'm going to use this strong one. Traditionally, well, I'm saying traditionally, it has given me something like probably best results using that preset as a starting point. Just make sure the details fine, all sorted out. Yeah, it's all retained. Now, because we've got some dark corners here, I'm just going to knock up the vignetting, but add it positively rather than not negatively. But instead of darkening the corners with vignetting, I'm going to lighten them, just to give us a better overall, flatter starting image. I want to stay and develop. And I'm just going to sync these settings over these selected captures. And then we can chuck through all these across into what's it called? Photoshop. And we do that by across the editing and then open layers as in Photoshop, and that will add them all in. Open a single document, but add each capture as a layer, so we can blend them all together. Well, we've got a good few watching now. I think this is the most live viewers I've had yet. So 5 weeks, we're doing well. Numbers are increasing. Evening, David. GCSE maths is a bit important, so I was going to say you're doing well to help. From what I've heard from GCSE maths these days, I think you're doing well to be helping out. I was reasonable at maths at school. It's one of the better marks I got at GCSE level, and I you hear about what they do nowadays. I haven't even got a clue what they're on about. Never mind being able to do it. So best of luck to your daughter with them anyway. Stressful time at the minute. Exams. Right then, so that's them all loaded in. And you're going to play around with the various blend modes as usual, just to see what, from a starting point of what they threw out at me, if it gives any hints of possible directions of where I could take the image. See, I do usually stick to dark and light and multiply, overlay, soft light. I've been known to diverse into some of the more extreme blend modes as well. Is that you struggling with a few of them, David, or she? She'll probably be able to school you, to be honest. These young kids these days are clever. So yeah, I'm just scrolling through. I haven't yet done any realignment of any layers yet. We've got the 5 layers open, just as there is Obviously, when I shot these, they're all handheld, so you never in the same, you never capture exactly the same position with each one. Each one's got a different starting point, so you get that variation. They're both struggling. Oh, that's maybe not so good. I'm sure if you Google it these days, back in our day, there wasn't such a thing as Google to help us with revision and homework and all that kind of stuff. I think that's why I was never very good at school. I was allergic to the library and reading. Right, I think just from this initial look through, I am looking at using the light and blend mode, which gives this nice hill effect. The stone circle is pretty much on the crest of a hill, in a fairly prominent position. It's not like a look at me from miles around kind of position. It's a subtle thing. I mean, the stones are maybe a little bit above head high, so they're not huge in the landscape, but when you're close to them, it is very much on a hilltop. Oh well, you're watching me as well, David. That's the main thing. That's good. Keep you entertained whilst you and your daughter get stressed out over the maths. So obviously one of the issues with having the light and blend modes is depending on which layers are visible. You see with this one, I've knocked out the second layer. If I have them all visible, then you can only really make out two of the stones. By knocking out this layer, it now shows all five. I would like them more centrally on the fake hilltop. So that's going more in the right direction, but as a personal choice, the edges are quite sharp. I do like a bit more subtlety to the edges. We'll see what we get. I've just taken that one out. Has just killed the hill effect. So we'll leave those two in place. I don't really like that one being taken out. Maybe a case of finding out which layer this part is on, which it may well be on this layer. It is. Just by moving this layer across, I can reposition the stone circle to almost the top of the hill. But you'll obviously see here there's a lighter part on another layer which is now blocking that view. So it is now going through each layer to see which one reveals no, it might be this back one. Yeah, it is. So obviously it's this bottom layer which was partially blocking the stones, but instead of taking that layer out altogether, I think I will be I've done that the wrong way around. Just a normal, create a layer mask over that layer, and I can just using a brush at 100% opacity. I've done that the wrong way around. Turn that to black, and just paint over that area, and it brings the stones back. So we have now, I'm just going to put that one back up to see if it makes any difference. No. This is where I start playing around lots and I wonder why it takes me 4 hours. 4 hours to make an image. You know, you start playing around with opacity, and I do like that very subtle hint. Just you know, see where these two are only just in view. There's a subtle hint of a double effect here, which I quite like. So it's not too pristine. So I think we'll cut our losses and call that a composition, a base composition. Google helped. Well, I certainly wouldn't help anyway, David. My knowledge of maths or GCSE maths is long gone and long out of date. So, right then. Just thinking of what other tweaks I can do before we throw it into Analog Effects Pro. So we can darkening it down a touch help. Or was that just? It's very subtle. I think we'll keep it dark for the time being, and just work how it is at the minute. So obviously you probably all know that I work predominantly, or a lot of this is done in the Analog Effects Pro 2 from the Nik Collection. So I'm just going to open it up in that. That'll just take a little second to, well, a few seconds to load. And then we can see what this spits out at us. Again, as I said last week, if anybody wants to buy me a new computer, they are most welcome. This one is getting long in the tooth and getting slow and makes lots of noise, just like me when I'm trying to move as well. I've got my own presets for Analog Effects Pro here, which are on the left hand side, which I've made it, you know, built up over the years as I've worked on images. There's nothing striking me in the face immediately from these presets, which I usually use as a starting point and then tweak from there. So it's more of a case of alright, question from Stu in the chat. Do you shoot in a high zone, and if so, what filters do you use? These images, which will feature in this coming vlog and the vlog beforehand, were all shot pretty much in the midday sun, so it was very challenging conditions. Generally I don't like to do it because it's like most photography, it's a lot harder to get a pleasing image in blue skies and the midday sun and all this kind of stuff. You know, harsh light is a problem for this photography as well, you know, as well as normal landscape photography, portrait photography. So it's hard, but I do use filters to offset having to work with shooting everything at f/22 which is obviously a problem because it makes your images very noisy with dust spots. Well, it certainly does with my sensor anyway. So I shoot with mainly a 6-stop filter. Also got a 3-stop and a 10-stop, which I can alternate or swap out depending on the lighting conditions. But these were all shot on a Nikon D700 at with a 6-stop, pretty much 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So very much the harshest light of the day. Just a couple of weeks ago, and it was bright sunshine. As you'll have seen from the normal image which I showed earlier on. That's the lighting conditions I was working with. So yeah, it just takes some adaptation. Does it change exposure times? It restricts exposure times. Obviously, if you shoot late in the evening, you could work with a 5-second exposure. I'm talking with using a 6-stop ND filter. But midday sun, with you still using a 6-stop filter, but adjusting your f-stop up to say f11. Using your exposure triangle. So you've got, what you're aiming for is to get a pleasing shutter speed. So you knock your ISO right down, you knock your f number right up, or up as far as you want it to go. So it does mean that your exposure times are shorter than I would generally like them to be. So a lot of these were probably shot at a 1/5 of a second, which is about as quick as I like to go. I'd rather be on the slower side of that. I don't like coming any faster than that because it doesn't give you a chance to get any decent movement in. So hopefully that answered that question, Stu. Right, just using this preset as a starting point. I'm just gonna have a bit play around to see what effects we can get. Switch on the vignette. That might give a bit more definition to the image, which I think already does. It centralizes the highlight on the stones there. No worries, Stu. Like I say, any questions, just fire away. I think this one may end up quite similar to the one I showed you just earlier on. I think I may have just tried to make this as just a silhouette on a hillside. Give it as clean a lines as possible. No, oh no, that's going to crash the system. Oh no, it didn't. Usually when I've hit the wrong twiddly bit, it's crashed the computer, and I've had to start it again. Luckily, it didn't do it. Otherwise, that would have been much a pain in the arse. Sort some of these sliders out. That's quite bad. I'm quite liking this, but the only thing is, it almost looks like the sky's on fire. You know, somebody's lit a fire and there's all the sparks flying around, which isn't ideal, but we may be able to get a shot of some of that. Be nice if I could. Excuse me, I'm gonna have a drink. I think that brightness is going to work. Also, battling the pace of the computer is really struggling now. So you can't really do the finite movements because it'll, you know, it takes 5 seconds for the screen to render. So it's not been yet. The levels. See if we can do something to maybe just clean that sky up a touch. And keep that curve down. Introduce an S curve. Maybe it's not that much because it's starting to blur the sky. It's also obviously doing that will impact the saturation as well. I'm just going to try to keep that under control, keep it reasonably natural. Well, as natural as an impression abstract landscape can be. Anyway. Just wondering, because most of the problems coming from this darker corner and the top, and that improves matters immeasurably. That's better. Yeah, I think this isn't going to be a one-step process. This is going to take some sorting out, but that's all right. Increase the fade on that, so any light areas become flatter. The same as if we drop this end of the slide, the curve down it, whiten. It darkens the white areas. Right, and I think we're good for this go around. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to throw this back into Photoshop, and then I'm going to probably stick it into Viveza for a few tweaks, and then bring it back into Analog Effects Pro, run another preset on it of some description, and see where we end up. Yeah, David. Yeah, D800 raw files are probably what, 30 odd meg. D850 files probably pushing 50 meg per frame. Luckily, I'm just using a D700, which is a 12 megabyte camera, megapixel camera, and therefore I am not. This computer's still bloody slow with that. I mean, when I was doing my long exposure work, you know, the refined black and white stuff where there was lots of masking and stuff going on. I did run into times when even with a 12 megapixel image, I'd you know, like finished Photoshop file sizes of approaching 2 GB. I think most of these files are probably hitting about 500 meg by the time I've finished. Obviously, with the layer, you know, you build up all the layers and you're just building up more information. So yeah, I'm pretty much maxed out with a 12 megapixel camera. So God knows what it'd be like with a 40 megapixel camera. Painfully slow, and probably I would just crash the machine left, right, and centre. So new camera means new computer. So unfortunately, I think I'm stuck with both old things for a little while longer. And Viveza, I don't know if you use that a lot. Some nice sliders in here. I mean, obviously you can do all this in Photoshop using their commands, but these are just kind of arranged in a better way, or a more localized way. Obviously you can just adjust the hue. Is one of the big tools I use. You know, if I just want to cool something down a touch or warm it up, you know, it doesn't have to be globally over the whole image. You can do it selectively as well. Just going to boost the contrast to try to make it more apparent that it's a silhouette, maybe with the sun behind it. I don't know if D850 would be a 100 megabyte file. I think that would be. Well, I would be guessing that. I don't think it'd be that much more than a D800. Maybe it's about the 60 to 65, maybe. I don't know. The only other camera I've tested that's newer than my own was a Fuji X-T1, which is a 16 megapixel camera, and that slowed my machine down stupidly long. So the next camera I do want is a 24 megapixel one, and I'm scared of even that. So I think the trick is don't have any money, so you're not tempted to buy anything, and then you haven't got the problem. Tell that to my bank manager though. Just adjusting a few sliders here. They want to keep it reasonably warm, just because, you know, I think that is my colour scheme. All these you know, yellows, oranges, reds, they do dominate my work. I do try to get away from them. Doesn't always work though. I don't want to darken that. I mean, big hasn't been a massive change there, but there's probably a bit more emphasis on the hill and the stones. It's not quite as washed out as you'll see as I bring the before and after draggy thing across. So we've got the before, got the after, so there's more contrast in the hill. The stones are a bit more apparent. So I think that's this tweak in Viveza done. So we'll just head that back into Photoshop for another layer. So we'll be building up the data now. So we'll just throw that straight back into Analog Effects Pro. This is something that I do quite a lot of, is, you know, processing Analog Effects Pro once, throw it back into Photoshop, have a think about it, go back in, see if it'll react again, you know, again and again. You build it up. That one that I spent, you know, how many, 4 hours on or whatever, that did go back into Analog Effects Pro, I think at least 3 times. So each time you go back in, it just, you can give you something different and enhance it just that wee bit more. So again, I'm looking down my presets as an idea for another starting point. And obviously, I'm wanting to keep the you know, the emphasis of it being a silhouette. You know, that's a decision I've made. So I'm not really looking at a result like this when it loads. Yeah, I mean, this I mean, a perfectly nice result, and in the, you know, in the right occasion and at the right time, I might be looking for something like this. But at the minute, just looking for a bit more contrast, a bit more silhouette. Like, this is more of a, you know, watercolor effect, or a watercolor result of effect. Probably the same as this one above it. Yeah, again, you know, this is another watercolor effect result, which I think I preferred the previous one, but if I was looking for that, then great. I am looking for something with a bit more contrast. I think this one might be a bit, it might be alright to start with, but I think it's already, straight away it's looking very red. Yes, you can adjust it, but is it worth spending the time adjusting everything just to knock it all back? I mean, saturation wise, you'd have to come back a long way. And the other thing is it enhancing it compositionally as well? You know, what's the benefit to, didn't have that enabled. You know, is it you know, changing the composition for the better or not? 92 megabytes. Jesus. Glad I don't have a Nikon D at 50 then, because that is just ridiculous. I think my raw files for here are something like 5 meg. It struggles with them. It's 92. And the rate I shoot as well. I'd fill a hard drive in a day. Good God. So how many megabytes is in a gigabyte? It'd be 1,000, so effectively maybe 12 shots per gig. That's a lot of space you're going to need. 12 shots in a gigabyte, I can do that in about, well, a few seconds. I'd be burning through my cards in no time. Ridiculous. Glad I haven't got any money. Otherwise I might be tempted. No wonder camera prices have rocketed this last few years. Now we've got the problem of positioning. There's obviously only a little bit of the way these double exposures work. The second, the first layer is the top layer is the first layer with a few adjustments. So you've only got the, that one size of image to work with. You can only expand it by 400%. So you're getting constricted by positioning. You bring it too far down to interact with the bottom of this, then the top of it, its repeated self at the top is starting to impact on the image, which isn't much use to me. Yeah, I don't think actually this image is going anywhere with those changes. I'll try this one just to see what it does. I think I may well flip this one to see how it interacts. So it's been flipped and then it's been flipped again. I think this maybe is not too bad for something dramatic. Maybe it's a bit overly dramatic. Don't like that much drama in my life. Readjust the balance. Knock the vignette off, so it's not as bad. And I suppose here we're starting to get, this area, does that look like a cloud? If you imagine, you have to use your imagination with these images. These lighter flecks. Does that start to look like a cloud? I'm going to bring the balance back further. The only problem is that it's starting to lose. The area just above here is starting to lose. To me, its appeal. And now that's 60%. I was at it at 50. Yeah, about there. And to my eyes, the this area here has almost have a bluey cast, so that means I'm going to have to go and work on that. But what I think I am definitely going to do is reduce the saturation, because that's just getting far too red. And the other thing is you've got to print it as well. Red doesn't print easily. I've had a lot less success. It's taken a lot of work to get reds to print how I like them. Just going to check some of these slight. Oh yeah, that one needs to stay. Just going to check some of these. Increase the faded part of this. Check the levels. Right, I think we're done for in here. A few tweaks to do. which I may actually do in Lightroom rather than within Photoshop or Viveza. Because Lightroom you can just create more, just copy itself various times and do other small tweaks too. Oh, the missus thinks it looks like Duddo. Oh well, I do like to keep an element of realism in these images. I'm not one for going completely abstract or too impressionist. So you'll know for me if I was, if I'm shooting Bamburgh Castle or Duddo Stone Circle or whatever, then you will be able to tell what it was. So anybody that knows these places will know, which is handy. Like I said, I don't like being too out there and too weird, and then all it is just shapes, which is great. I mean, for those that can do it and understand it, some of us are just simpletons who just like a fancy picture, like a nice picture with some nice colour, and this is about as exciting as we like it. So I do like an element of realism, which hopefully it should be, because it's been taken with a camera, so it should capture some of that realism. Right then, so what I'm actually going to do, because I was reasonably happy with this capture, this point in the processing, as well as this point, I am going to save it twice. So I'm going to save it, and this will automatically generate the PSD and fire it back into Lightroom. And when that's done, I'm going to do a save as and save it as edit to, and that should fire that into Lightroom as well, without you having to then go and navigating to add the file to the add the file to the catalog and all this kind of stuff. It just makes it more awkward, takes more time. So just bear with us while this saves. The whole 63% it's on at the minute. So anybody else out there that's watching, do say hello in chat. It's not just the Stu and David show. Always good to see who's out there. Do say hello. Oh, speak of the devil. Well, not the devil, but speak of somebody that said you'd be here. Evening, Alan. You mean to say you haven't got me on notifications? It should ding on your phone, and then you'll know that I'm online. But good to have you here, Alan. Always nice to see you. Right, so that one's saved, and I'm just going to do a save as for this version. I'll just make that edit to, save it, save the compatibility, yes, and then just wait another little bit. Certainly, Stu, plug away. Hashtag abstract100. Do explain. You have me on silent, Alan. Disgraceful. Yes, Stu, for your hashtag project. If you send us some text to go with it, and I can put it. I can stick a link in the description for you or whatever. That'd be fine. Just gives a little bit of a description, and I'll stick that with it. Right, I think we are now all saved with those two. So obviously this is one I was working on. I'm going to create a virtual copy so I can leave the original as it is and just generally work on the first. So what I'm thinking, I'm going to darken the top of the frame and I'm going to highlight this area in the middle so it feels like a sunset or after sunset, or so just a graduated filter or whatever you want to call it, just to darken that down just a touch. Doesn't need much because you take it down too far and it just turns a horror, it's just like an overlay, so it doesn't affect the colours properly. Just almost like it's like a graduated layer of black rather than darkening the image, colour by colour. I mean, obviously you can use the colour sliders to enhance or just detract or whatever. Slightly blue there would be as good. Just a touch. Right, done. I'm just going to do a fairly long, thin radial filter across the middle here. And just the brightness of that. We'll see with that it's starting. Give that like a pink tone. It certainly is on my monitor anyway. So I'm just going to warm that up a touch with some like a yellow adjustment in the temperature. Just a touch into the greens just to bring that back. Bring that up there. Now, one thing the most recent update of Lightroom brought in was these range masks, which I've only just started playing around with. So you can find them if you do a graduated filter or a radial filter, probably an adjustment brush. You can, instead of going into Photoshop making luminosity masks and all this kind of gubbins, Lightroom's got these like a range mask which you can adjust for luminance and color. So you can either pick a color in it so it doesn't affect that color, or you pick a luminance and it you can, so it only affects the brights or the darks, but in a graduated scale in between. So fingers crossed, when I pull this in, it should. So it's on as wide as a range as it possibly can be there, and as you can bring it in from the darks, you can see that it doesn't have the effect, that lightening effect on the darker areas. So it doesn't this radial filter isn't affecting this area too much. It is just a slightly. Thoroughly recommend getting on Twitter, David. It's pretty much all I'm all ever on nowadays, apart from YouTube now, obviously. Yeah, the range masks. To be honest, it's only from the weekend I've started playing with it, and I haven't really come across a use for it in other landscape type, ordinary landscape photography. I'm sure there is a use generally, but I've only used it as a, creating the effect of a, light behind something to make it more, so you can brighten an area but still have that sharp silhouette-y kind of edge. That's the only time I've used it so far, but certainly worth experimenting with it. I'm sure if you go on to Adobe.tv, there'll be Julianne Cost will have a video about how to use it. So yeah, experiment, people, play around. It's all good. So I'm just gonna see how much I can get away with brightening this area. Probably not that much. Because all I want is the effect, is the feeling of the sun having set, or the always is setting in the distance, but you're behind the hill. That's the kind of feeling I'm trying to portray here. Because obviously if it went behind, how it actually set and there was clouds in the sky, they would be lit up underneath oranges and pinks, and I ain't colouring all that in. So this is why it's impressionism. Don't have to be deadly accurate. So I think that may well be an image, and it's taken me over an hour. And that was me trying and hoping I would get more than one out, but evidently not. I'm not sure if you can see it full screen or not. No, I'll leave it my let's see if I can get rid of my face from here. Able to see that? Hopefully you can see that full screen. So that's our final image. Well, I'm saying final image. I think what I'll actually do is create another virtual copy of this, and then I can play with the crop. And I was originally thinking, is this a square crop kind of image, and do I really want that main stone bang on the rule of thirds, the thirds point, or do I want to get away from that and go elsewhere, or do I want it that far over there? Do I want it 4x5 crop? I am starting to do more 4x5 crops, and it's disturbing me because I always hated them. Maybe it's just recent images have lent themselves to them. Or do I stick to 2x3? It's quite what. I'm gonna go 4x5. Stick it over there because I like that loose, blurred edge here along the edge of the hill. And yes, it's that area smack bang on the thirds, but I still like it. So I'll just confirm that, and I think we'll call that a finished image. Thanks, Alan. Yeah, I'm not sure if you missed much at the start, but do watch because it helps with watch time. Yeah, I do like a lot of negative space in the images, Stu. So I'm very much getting into the habit of having like a long thin strip of something just along the bottom, and then having a massive sky. Just lots of space for the area to breathe through. So yeah, this finished image, if you do search out that painting of Stonehenge by William Turner of Oxford, not JMW Turner, just William Turner of Oxford. you'll see the image that I'm on about. So yeah, it's not a straight copy of it. It's inspired by it. So there we go. So yeah. So anyways, I think they were. I think I'll probably about do. Go through my notes of anything I have to say before the end. Just the obvious. Thanks for watching. Amateurish. Newsreaders don't have this problem. It's all electronic. Thanks for watching. Much appreciated your time and your eyeballs. Hopefully you'll learn something from these every week. I know it can be a bit repetitive, but I suppose I'm just doing it to clarify everything in my own mind as well. If you've enjoyed this, please do like, share, and if you're not already, subscribe. And unlike Alan, click the bell icon as well for when you subscribe, and it'll remind you. And if you have clicked that, make sure your phone's actually got its volume up, so you do actually get them notices. Unlike Alan, you can follow us on all the main social medias. Twitter and Instagram is at Andrew S. Gray. I am on Facebook, but it's usually just adverts for this stream. Yeah, I am still working on my Patreon page, which will be coming soon, hopefully. Again, I've changed my newsletter thing, my newsletter sign-up process, because of this GDPR nonsense from Europe. So if you're not subscribed to my newsletter, go along and sign up for that. I won't bombard your inbox at all. And hopefully there may be a vlog out this week, depending on what my schedule's like for the rest of the week. And there's 3 in the can, so expect some coming up in the coming weeks. And of course, I'll be here every Tuesday for Tuesday night edits at 7:30 UK time. So if I don't see you before then, I'll see you next week. We'll catch you then. See ya.